Part 4. Endurance.
Get up, you slag. You ain't going to milk those argybrass on the ground, is you? I suppose you think one alien's gonna have your baby. Well, I saw you first and I'm up heaven with above, boy. Get out my factory, which has mysteriously turned into my pub. Now, who out of you Clandusprods wants to go for a barbie? We got 10 minutes before closing time, and if I ain't careful, we're about to be gate-crashed by a Bella brat on a moped who claims to be my long-lost brother. Things are really about to kick off, just as long as none of us step on that misused mining shaft on Christmas Day for no explicable reason. Wait, you're not a ball of light, you're a da-da-da. Tune in next week.
Earth Soap Opera Revival Week. Enwyn and Lizzie's further adventures on Coronation Earth. Ziggurat Enders Farm. 27th century.
Come on, old chap. It's time to wake up.
Was I dreaming? Come on, Enwyn, get it together, I told myself sharply.
No, this is Bobby the Bella Brat. You remember we spoke before? To be honest, I think you were just a little in love with me. Just a little bit? No? Oh well, please yourself. Though I don't like humans as a rule, your Clandusprod was pretty insistent on how great you were, and I figured you must be pretty special for her to risk so much to contact you, so I thought I would be brilliant and noble and wonderful and risk everything to call you up. What are you doing on the ground?
I'm not doing anything on the ground. Wait, what am I doing on the ground? Oh, my head hurts.
My other heads are calling on all frequencies in the hope that we might be able to get some other voices online. You just keep talking to this one while I dial them through. Lucky for you, I'm such a whiz with this technology.
Thank you, I croak.
Enwyn, stay awake, Enwyn. Yes, wake up, Enwyn.
Come on, Enwyn.
We need you, Enwyn.
Your people need you, Enwyn. Our people need you, Enwyn.
As the voices swam in my head, I began to wonder who I was and what I was doing lying on this cold hard pavement covered in snow. It came back to me in waves. Lizzie, our plan, the rally. The voices answered me in order.
Lizzie is fine, but they locked her up, twice, to stop her talking to you. She called for our heavenbounds to let her out, which they did, but now they've been taken back to their teleporter rooms, while a soul is taught to you from our own planet. We've been desperate to contact you, but didn't have the right frequency code.
I've tried every channel now, but can't get hold of her.
Your plan is working though, Enwyn. There are so many people who know about your story now. It's really changing the way people think, and the way people think about humans.
So many turned up for the rally. Some of them may well still be there.
So get up, Enwyn. We will help you. My head wedge showed me how to pass strength on to another being, and we have been sending all of ours to you.
Slowly, painfully, I got up. I was not done yet. If members of 7 different species could club together to help us out, then I was not about to let a planet die because of me. Getting stronger with each step, I hauled myself upright, dusting the snow off my shoulders. How different everything looked suddenly. The sun that had been trying so hard to shine through the fog was now glinting off all the snow and ice. Just as the weather was at its bleakest, it somehow made it feel like summer again. The sun reflected back off every surface straight into my eyes. I heard my companions puffing and panting under the strain. I got stronger with each step and hurried myself along to the factory, thanking all the voices in my mind, pleased that my head was full again. Finally, I was upright and walking better than I had in years. You can rest now, my friends. Your work is done. Especially you, my dear Bobby. I would have been a goner without you. But contact your heavenbounds if you would be so kind, and get a message back to Lizzie what's happening if you can find her, and keep the channels open if you can. I felt so much better as I felt the stream of activity within my mind that told me I had friends in the universe and that everything might be okay after all. Unfortunately, the same wasn't true of my own planet, and I met many hundreds of my own species coming dejectedly the other way. No, I begged for more. Turn round, your speaker is here, and besides, who needs a speaker when there are this many of you? Go and protest by yourselves. But it was too late. Nobody was listening to me after standing for so many hours in the snow, and why would they when they didn't know who I was, except the bloke who had been face down in the snow on their way past earlier. Approaching the factory, I found to my horror that it had been officially called off. The powers that be had sent in the soldiers, who were threatening to make mass arrests if people didn't go home, with a full bombardment due if nobody complied. Thankfully, still nobody here knew who I was, or they would have arrested me at once. For once my illness had come in useful, as few of the guards even noticed me with my hobble and waddle, never mind consider me the ringleader of the entire demonstration. Thankfully I knew my way around the place quite well, and I knew of the right hiding places. To my delight I found exactly who I needed, the homeless chap who slept on our street that I hadn't seen since that job centre visit with Lizzie. As someone who used to work here and was often in need of shelter when Crawley moved on from our road, he was a perfect person to find his way around the factory, and after asking for his help showed me all the small hiding places where the guards wouldn't find me. He even, before departing in a rush, directed me to a cache that had been made for me if I were ever to turn up. No weapons, of course, just camera equipment, food and supplies. I could, if need be, hold myself up here for days. I certainly didn't fancy walking all the way back home again. I wasn't going anywhere till I had rested. The problem was what to do next. Could we organise another rally in time? And would people turn up to another one after what happened to the first? And what was all that noise suddenly going on outside? It sounded like pandemonium, but was it just a ruse to get us all to leave? Would I be safer here in this hiding place? Just what exactly was happening? And where was Lizzie?
For one lone Clandusprod and that over-involved pet monkey, you haven't half caused me a load of problems, my girl.
Good, I say, not sure what else to say before deciding this might be a good opportunity to craftily learn something. What is it you were trying to do again? The ball of light snorted.
As if I'm going to tell you.
Oh, that didn't work then. Well, you might as well, I say, as nonchalantly as I can. I don't think you're likely to achieve it if you're stuck here watching me all the time.
Oh, it has all been set in place already. It's just a matter of time. You have already helped me prove that humans are untrustworthy, to the point where they make even normally placid species like Clandusprods turn rogue. Plotting insurrection and teleporting, escaping arrest, we don't allow such things in heaven. It's just not on. It was very interesting listening into your conversation.
Of course, the wires. And I knew there was another voice, so that's who it was. But I had a more pressing question to ask first. Why is it so dangerous to talk to a human? And if it's so dangerous, why put me with one in the first place?
You were meant to be with Bobby and Bella Brown first, but I switched the room you were sent in and hoped that nobody would notice. Nobody did. You were meant to see how horrible the species was that was about to blow people up and get angry, causing more trouble and proving the point I'd just been making with my colleagues about how humans could be trusted. I wasn't expecting you to fall in love.
I blushed involuntarily at this, my skin turning to pink with a hint of roulet. But at the same time this was awful. I wasn't meant to be with Enwin after all. It was all part of some big trick. It had felt so right.
So instead I stopped you talking. I wasn't expecting you to disobey. That's not a very Clandusprod to do.
Maybe not, but unluckily for you it is a very Lizzie thing to do. We Clandusprods aren't all the same, you know, however it might seem to outsiders.
I see that now. Luckily I had a backup plan from the grunt that passed over last week, and I placed with the human.
Not my Enwin. I thought he was the only human thought to be ready. I felt a great pang at the thought of Enwin talking to someone else in his head, even though I knew that was ridiculous. It must be months this time since I had last been able to talk to him directly.
That all rather depends on what you mean by ready, and now I can see that Enwin wasn't suitable for what I wanted. The other human named Boris was much more amenable to my plan, and convinced his Clandusprod to wipe out half of the human species instead. The other side of the planet felt crooks. We've never got on apparently.
But that's insane. Why?
Humans aren't ready to be up here yet. Their industrial revolution is barely started, and now they're starting to fly and travel across the stars. Ha! They are savages, not fit to be let loose on the rest of the universe. We bring death and destruction with them wherever they go. They still see different members of their own race as wrong or evil and long to destroy them. Can you imagine the damage they would inflict if they find out that there are so many different species, so different to themselves? Can you imagine if you could join your people and told them these planets are? It would be mayhem. Everybody would be up here, and nobody would be left down there. Everyone would have died.
But you don't know that. It isn't like that at all. Humans are good and bad and everything in between, just as Clandusprods are, just as Bellabrats are, just as all of us are. It's not up to you to say what will happen. Give humanity a chance. Blow up just the bad ones if you have to, the evil ones who pretend to be in charge. The ball of light grew, ironically, as aggressive as the species it was trying to condemn out of hand.
That's not true. I know that the human race destroys white rabbits in the future interstitial war. All of the readings prove it. In 500 years' time, there will be no mechanics left. Not one.
But that's in the future. We all have free will. You balls of light told me that. You can't know what they will do. The humans don't even know your planet exists yet, only ours.
And look what their first reaction was, to blow you all up.
Not the majority of people, only the greedy leaders. The other humans will stop it. Enwyn is already stopping it.
Not if I can help it. It is a sad fact of life that no species will learn from their own history, and they pay scant attention to each other. Better to be safe than sorry, and let the human race run rampage throughout the universe like a scourge of parasites sucking everything dry. You can't deny that there was a lot of that in the past.
No, I plead again, really. Whatever humans may have done in the past, they are not like that now. Believe me, I know much more than you do.
Oh,
said the voice in scorn.
Because you spent a few days in one being's head.
No, I say, because I sense a fear and chaos and confusion and anxiety on the planet, and why it is so easily channeled for bad, but could so easily be channeled for good. Other Clandusprods might not feel it, but I know what it is like to live with those feelings of not thinking you're good enough to live in the galaxy, rubbing shoulders with your neighbours, and I know that it is born not out of evil or wickedness, but misunderstandings. In the past, a lot of it was for survival, but mankind knows he can survive most things now. The difference is that they are still such a young species, they don't fully realise that yet. They don't have enough history to prove to them that they will be alright whatever happens, that they will survive. What they don't know is that the people have the power to do anything, including ignore what the world leaders tell them to do when they know that it is wrong. In many ways they are more advanced than my planet, which doesn't even realise that even now. All it takes is for someone to be that person, to tell them that.
Oh, and you're that person, are you? One lonely nothing Clandusprod who took her own life out of fear and panic and loneliness, pretending that she can tell the whole planet now how to change their ways.
Yes, I say, more timidly than I meant to. But for the first time in my life, well, I'm deaf. You are wrong about the alone part. With Enwyn's help, with every headwed and Soiler's help, apart we are so very small and can do so very little, but together we can do so very much. Enwyn told me once about the revolutions on his planet, the way the little men will always speak up to the big ones when things get too nasty. This time, though, we're not going to get corrupted by power the way that beings did in the past. Humans are too smart for that now. They know that they have to live and die together as one, with a society built to help all, or that would be the real cause of their destruction.
I cannot take that chance. If your people had been wiped out, maybe you would understand.
Your people haven't been wiped out yet. That's a potential timeline based on the worst of humanity, not the best. Not the ones that I see, that can learn and grow. And I do know how you feel. My people will be wiped out too unless the Earth changes its collective mind this minute, and it's your fault far more than any human. Do you really think you have the moral high ground here, wiping out children before they have a chance to grow into adults?
How dare you, insignificant Clandusprod? I am as moral as the day is long.
Well, that doesn't mean much to a Clandusprod that lives on a planet where it's always daytime, and days last years for other species.
Talk about wars, but you have no idea what they are like.
Maybe, but you have no idea about peace and what that's like. The light rose to its full height and cowered over me.
I read your file, and I know you well. I know you are scared and anxious, so afraid of speaking up for yourself that you have to rebel in secret, so nobody ever noticed you. This is all talk and nothing more. Why would an insignificant nobody like you ever dare to try and stop me?
I never used to speak up, it's true, but now I've made it my life's work to stand up to every bully, whoever they may be, whatever might happen to me. After all, what are you going to do to me? Kill me?
Yes, of a sort. I can have you vaporized. Have your privilege to remain in heaven revoked.
You are too late. If I'm about to lose Enwyn, then I would rather not exist all the same.
No, it is you that is too late. All this time I've been wondering how to get rid of the humans rather than Clandusprods. In fact, I'm a human stooge, I know how. Humans really aren't very bright. This one thinks he's going to blow up the other side of the world with all its enemies with him, without realising the damage it will probably do to all of the planet. And it's probably on its way by now. Then the humans will blame it on the Clandusprods and seek revenge, and will both blow each other.
But I need to find Enwyn, I cry, using my small height to dash away from my captor through the door and out into the corridor, but slamming it behind me so that it temporarily blocked out all the light, leaving my captor unable to see. Whether through luck or ego or both, this ball of light had not taken any guards with him, so there was no one to see where I went. In the split second as I leave, I register that the ball of light is clearly surprised and taken aback, too late to see where I had gone, so rather than run down a corridor where he can see me, I dart into the next room, intending to hide. It is the dispersal room I found earlier, only something about it was different to the last time I had been in here. There was a teleportal machine in the corner, all plugged in and ready to go, one that looked suspiciously as if it had been planted there by somebody. Was this another trap? There were no wires though, and I figure it wouldn't take long for the ball of light to tune in and find me if he chose to, so I picked it up and plugged it in. I had to see if Enwyn was dead, or if there was any chance he was still alive. Pushing it to the back of my head, the thought that a day at least must have passed in his time, and he would surely be dead by now, lost out there in the snow. I braced myself that there would be no answer at the other end except a stony silence, but before I could even dial a number, I got Bobby's voice in my head.
Lizzie, at last, we've been looking for you.
We?
All of the headweds are here, connected to me.
And Enwyn?
And Enwyn too. I think he's pleased to hear from you. All right, old thing, you can stop screaming in my head now. She's safe.
Well, not exactly, I say, and prepare to pour out my story, after first checking that Enwyn really is all right and hearing his voice direct, while all of the headweds tuned into my new frequency. You see, I'm in trouble. So is Enwyn's planet now that the missile is pointed towards the town he's in. And come to that, given what the rogue ball of light told me, I think we all are.
The Bella Brat is wearing a hat. Where do you think the Bella Brat is at? That's right, the Bella Brat is on the mat. Now what do you all have to say about that? You too can buy this piece of tat. Bobby Bella Brat saved the universe, almost single-handedly, just by writing about it. And so can you if you sign up to this handy course from Brushverse's finest university, Bratbridge. Learn how to talk proper like what Bobby does in Earth language. In this brand new course that allows you to curve your script like a Clandusprod, do handwriting like a human, or write calligraphy like a Camelosian. Ex-President Bobby will also teach you all how he put together the manga novel Super Bobby and the Infighting Galaxy of Doom, about how he saved the galaxy with some help from his human and Clandusprod assistants, and how it became the universe's #1 international bestseller. Now with added quarks.
Nobody disses my boyfriend's planet and gets away with it. I just hope that they don't find where I'm hiding, I end, summing up my tale. You were so brave, Lizzie, said Enwyn in awe. Really, really brave. So much for being an insignificant Clandusprod. I don't know anyone who could do what you did. Thank you. So are you, my love. There were so many people at the factory. I'm sorry you didn't get to deliver your speech. We have the most intense mental hug right there and then, before I feel several voices tugging at my sleeve, and Bobby the Bella Brat joking.
Get her on, you two.
It is so good to have you back together,
said Hector the Habridat.
But let me get this straight. There's a rampaging being up there with us who will do anything to stop us, who is onto our plan, and has a missile still pointed straight at your planet.
At this all my relief and joy left me, and I suddenly realised what trouble we were all in. Yes, I had. In all honesty, I've had better days. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I think things are about to get a lot worse, said the McGrumph. I've just found my way back to the television monitor room, or trying to find you. There's been a change of plan with the missile. Apparently, in order to stop the demonstration spreading, they are preparing to blow up the factory in Enwyn's town. We don't know if he's there or not, but they say they're not taking chances. What? No, this can't be happening. In trying to save my planet, I have put the one I love in jeopardy. Probably his whole town, perhaps his whole planet. Why do things like this always happen to me? Not your fault, said Enwyn quietly, and again I'm shocked that he can actually hear my thoughts. How long have we got? Enwyn asked from the grump thoughtfully. A week your time, I think. Maybe. Well, that's all right, I say hopefully. That's plenty of time to get you away and everybody else too. But I could tell Enwyn didn't agree. How long till the missile launch against Sigurd is free? Hopefully we've put them back, just a little bit. Have they mentioned that on the news? And the grumph paused. I'm not certain, but it's longer, perhaps 10 days or so. And there's no time to run and hide and start again. People need to see what happens when they let their fears run away with them. I'm going to stay and broadcast the whole event, so everyone can see what happens when prejudice gets out of hand. Some people out there will have read my tale of being with Lizzie. Hopefully enough will be moved to do something. Maybe some of you will help me broadcast it via your own planet's news channels too. That's maybe beyond most of us, technologically speaking, but maybe not for a human. Is anyone near the monitor room? Maybe Enwyn can talk you through it, said Hector. Enwyn, no, you'll be sacrificing your life for nothing, I cried. Not for nothing, Lizzie. I want the universe to see that humans can be as noble as the rest of the universe when they have the right reasons to be. Somebody needs to show them that there is a better way, or all is lost, for all of us. I've been thinking. My kind foolishly think you are the only alien life out there, and once you are gone they will be safe. But what they don't know is that there are so many other species around who will surely retaliate out of their own fright and destroy our kind altogether. Better to risk the lives of one than the many. For my time is up soon with this illness, whichever way you look at it. At least I have time to say goodbye to you properly. I've only just found you again. I can't lose you. I feel so helpless, I'd start to say, before stopping myself in sudden realisation. No, wait, not helpless at all. Enwyn, I've got it. Your plan of writing out our story. Look at how many people you were able to convince just on your own planet, from one computer. Oh, most of them will have to be won over again, I should think, after that no-show. No, now we have a week to really spread your story to everywhere. If you others are willing, we all write it, every single one of us up here and down there, on every planet, even the ones who think they're alone in the universe. We can keep writing in book form and send it out to every planet using the dispersal machine. Those of you who are soilers can do what Enwyn did and spread our story using every media you have on your planet. And if your planet doesn't happen to have one, then you can have it invented for you, one last gift of an art form by the greatest practitioners of art in the universe, the humans. Yes, said Enwyn. Hopefully it will change public opinion here on Earth and stop the missile again, properly this time. And we always said we were storytellers. We can tell our planets too so that they will know what's really going on. We might not be able to stop them, but at least we can try.
Backside be first,
yelled Bobby.
And I bet my writing will be the longest and greatest of them all.
What's writing again? Just copy what Enwyn was doing with his internet posts, but this time we do it in every medium possible. Fiction, non-fiction, poetry, music. Oh, I know. I think we can even make a joke book out of this. The only worry is, says Enwyn thoughtfully, I had a whole year to spread my story last time, and still didn't really get that far. Can we really do it in a week? Well, maybe if we all pull together, I said, not even convincing myself with my faked optimism.
Mimosa,
said Oliver the Mechion excitedly.
Did I hear you say that the dispersal room allowed you to send things backwards through time? In which case, couldn't we send everything before it happened? All we have to do is write it in time our end, but every species should have time to discover it and read it before things happen. Say if everybody synchronises around 10 of your Earth years ago.
heard 13 voices all call out in unison in my head, and only vaguely registered that I was one of them. "Let's get writing," said Enwin joyously. "If you want, I can dictate what I've written, then everybody can have their own versions of our story too. This will actually be fun. And best of all, it will be the first ever intergalactic joint effort, in the name of peace, not war." "Of course," said Enwin, taking me back down to earth. "All Ziggur is free. We can't put a note with it, or really say why we're writing it. It will just turn up randomly on each planet. Maybe in a bookshop, maybe an online store, maybe on a website, maybe in a Kindle. The majority of people will just see it as fiction in the time period we're in. Most people won't believe a word of it. But depending on how accurate the machine is, I wonder how close we can get it to the date of the missile launch, but early enough for it to do some good."
Won't it just be ignored or intercepted before we even have a chance to send it? Or if we send it back in time?
Maybe. Does that matter though? Even if it's dismissed as fiction, it still tells the story, and people will know what to do when it happens for real. The minute they see my planet on the news, they will remember that weird book they read once, and hopefully behave better next time. And if it's intercepted, well, we're no worse off than we are now, are we? Maybe we'll end up part of some alternate timeline where this doesn't even happen, or something. I'm a bit out of my comfort zone here, if I'm honest. Somehow all the minds that have fallen quiet were listening to me, waiting for me to give them hope and leadership. It had gone quiet. It was a strange yet satisfying feeling that I'd never had in my life before, but I couldn't let myself dwell on it too hard. There was work to do, and planets to save, and so much of it depended on me and these good friends I barely knew. It's worth a try anyway. Come on, all the aboves to the dispersal room. There's lots of paper and recording devices there. All you soilers grab whatever you use to mark your language with, and really get that sense of urgency across. We need people to know that this is a matter of life and death, because it is. I believe in all of you though. We are about to go more viral than a full-headed argybrath with a cold. Come on, gang. If there were enough of us who were awake to it, we could tell our story. All of us, all the Lizzies and Enwins from across different worlds could come together and release 10 editions simultaneously for each of our 10 planets. Some would surely demand their money back. Others would consider us mad. Others yet see it described as a work of fiction and assume it to be nothing more. Some might stick it on their bookshelves for a while to see if what we wrote about came true. Some people might do the same with the audiobooks on their MP3 players. But a few precious people scattered around the galaxy would get it. And what was the great message we wanted to send to the world? Not to be afraid. That humanity wasn't all like this. That the universe wasn't all like this. But in fact the majority of people didn't feel fear and hatred towards other beings, however much it seemed it. And that we still had time to stop this disease before the fullest damage had been done.
I am trying to contact all frequencies. I have a story to tell you regarding my friends. Look, I know it must seem strange to suddenly receive this out of the blue, but there is a reason for it, honest. We have to file a report with someone. It will all have been in vain, for nothing. I am trying to contact on all frequencies. I have a story to tell you regarding my friends, who are nearly as courageous and wonderful as me. Look, I know they weren't meant to contact you like this, and the story might be a bit confusing, but well, the universe is in jeopardy. We have to file a report with someone. It will all have been in vain, for nothing. And so, we can't have that happening to the hero of the story, me.
This is the last day that I look back, now that the message is known unto me. The hurdles this cycle had placed in my path have hindered me greatly, but now I am free. There are no tricks but the ones I accidentally begin, by steering off course to avoid the sight, but I hope they will not hurt me as, face to the wind, I claw my way back into the fight. And write the universe's first intergalactic collaborative poem. Our room was a hubbub of activity, with 7 of us packed into it, and another 7 minds in ours beyond that, all trying to write our story in their own way. Edwin had given his version of what had happened to us, and everyone was trying out different genres to see what worked best for them. For some reason I had ended up editor, and as well as writing my own version for my own planet, I was in charge of accepting everybody's work. They really were of the most varied design that encouraged me to think of doing my own variations for my book. I wondered if one day they could be collected together in one big intergalactic edition. Poetry, I gasped to Enwin during a rare break, my own book having been finished first. Lots and lots of poems to break up the prose. Oh, and what about a joke book? A joke book? Yes, just like the one you showed me. Just in case the reader is running out of patience by the time we reach this bit in the book. It is a bit long after all, Lizzie added mournfully. Okay, maybe we can work on that part together. Oh yes, let's. We can add a section right here, in the middle of part of the story where we are now. Enwin shrugged his shoulders, bemused. Enwin and Lizzie's joke section. How many Clandusprods does it take to change a light bulb? None, because they don't do artificial light. Doctor, I feel like a Clandusprod. Well, I was wondering about the purple spots. Knock knock. Clandusprod. Clandusprod who? Clandusprod me into the right area I need to be in. A human and a Clandusprod walk into a bar. Why the long face, says the bartender. Because I'm a Clandusprod, you clodpole. What do you call a really positive alien? A Candusprod. How many McGrumps could a McGrumph grump if the McGrumph was called Percy? How many humans does it take to stand up on a Friday night? None, because they're always legless. I don't think any of my kind will get that joke, Lizzie. It's simple, really. Clandusprods say they have a spare pair of legs so when they go out drinking, just in case, we call the back pair stabilisers. Oh, okay. I'm not sure we ought to include that one, though. This has all got a bit out of hand. Should we just go back to writing this normally? Yes, let's. How about this, said Enwin proudly. When the sun glows, the pain goes, and when the rain pours, the pain soars, unless you have a girl or a fella who can lend you their umbrella. Well, it's not bad for a first try, I suppose. It's not quite how I'd have put it. Keep going? Yes, keep going. I walked, well, sort of drifted really, over to where the Dewsbury giant was working. He seemed to be working on a big cookery book.
My kind only have cookbooks, you see,
he explained sadly.
I thought my people would be most likely to pick it up if they thought it contained recipes. I've added lots from my own family. I looked up a few Earth recipes and tried to tie them in with different parts of your story. The Eccles cake of discovery, the Yorkshire pudding of doom, the banoffee pie of fate, the flat pancake of retribution, the baked beans on toast of Armageddon.
Excellent, I say. Keep it up. With the room busy, I went into my mind to look over everybody else's work. Bobby was working on a comic book adaptation and had drawn us as superheroes.
Pow! Zap! Splat!
He said as I looked over his shoulder at what he was doing. Very good, Bobby. I like the title. Bobby the Bella Brat Saves the Universe.
Well,
He says sheepishly.
I know you and Enwin did a bit too, but I helped too, didn't I?
It looks fabulous, Bobby. Just the sort of thing to appeal to Bella Brats. As long as you have it in there somewhere, but not all humans are bad.
Oh yes, I've put that there may be my 5th favourite species.
Excellent. I went to have a look at Katia the Camalosian's work. It was written on a scroll, all ornate and fancy in legalese, with illustrations, and told our story as if it was a myth or a legend. Lovely. I think you've really captured the purpleness of my spots. I moved on to Mimosa the Malaysianard, who had written our story in great depth, with special sections of the horoscopes and tarot readings of all the parties involved, and some extra philosophical analysis on the side. He was just adding a postscript that we hadn't reached yet when I reached him. Very good. But wait, your book has an ending. You can't say that.
Why not?
Well, it hasn't happened yet.
But it must be true if I've written it. The Malaysians are good at foretelling the future.
Then how?
It was waiting in the event, as all good books do. I just seem to have got a bit ahead of myself, that's all.
There wasn't a lot I could say to that, so I carried on and hoped that Mimosa turned out to be right. Most everybody's work was excellent, and nobody seemed to need me, so I sat on the floor and gazed in pride at all this activity. How I hoped it would work, but what would the readers make of it all? I wondered idly who might have been reading this passage right now, how they came to our book and why. Were they Earthling, or Clandusprod, or another race entirely? What section of a bookshop or the internet have they found this book in? Did they understand any of it? Were they just randomly flipping to this page to see if they wanted to buy it? Ooh, how scary that would be if true. Were they still reading on because they genuinely cared what happened? Would they still be there caring when they got there? Were they the sort of person I would invite back home for tea and for long talks about philosophy and the universe and the way everything seemed to be so badly and randomly put together, yet it still felt as if everything was working to some secret plan beyond my comprehension? Would they be my friends that we've met in my lifespan, rather than the strangers we were when we started this book? Would they be the sort of person I would bring home to meet my clan? Did they listen to and believe what they were told by the people in charge of their lives? Were they the sort of people who, if they met me in the street, would call in the army and dissect me and destroy my world? Were they the half of the world that listened to the Beatles, or the half that listened to the Spice Girls? Most importantly of all, were they kind? Sorry for the patchwork quilt design, I thought, and the rather slow beginning. But well, it was the best means by which we could get the message out to you, so that you could trust us, and realise that what we were saying is happening now, that it is imminent. Everything might be about to be destroyed, and everything lost, and there is very little time to be able to put this darkness right. Thank you for reading, Bo. It means the world to me. And us.
Any chance you could stop imagining your dim-witted readers and keep the noise down, Lizzie? I read a crucial part of my blockbuster. I've turned it into a western.
Said Glenda the Glad-to-Hearted, apart from the human, the only species not represented up above. After a while she explained and prompted.
All our books are westerns, because all our planet is desert.
Well, it made sense to me,
All our planet is dessert.
said the Dewsbury giant. Oops, sorry, I keep forgetting everyone can hear my thoughts, I said. I'll go and check on Enwin. He was just finishing up. How are you getting on with the Earth edition? Well, I enjoyed it while I was writing it, but looking back at it now, I don't know. I was going to get absolutely everything into this story. Life, love, death, hope, aliens, ghosts, guardian angels, politics, prejudice, capitalism, the stupidity of school, and much of our childhoods, what happens to us when we die, why we were meant to live, the meaning of everything. I feel like I failed on that count. But what would that leave anyone else to write, or you to write for the sequel? Even if they are only crumbs, sometimes the crumbs still add up to something. Just think, we won't only save civilization, they'll study us in schools, in classrooms across our 2 planets, maybe more. We'll be famous. Oh, I can just imagine what we'd be saying about us in schools. Too many words, not enough pictures, people misspelling Clandusprod and losing marks of that for no good reason. Why, they'll be begging to have Shakespeare back. Well, I really enjoyed it. I think we've had great fun playing about with postmodernism, poetry and font sizes. Plus there's been life, death, love, suicide and sections on aliens, ghosts and the afterlife. The audiobook version even had some music in it. What more can you ask for? People are bound to pick it up. What front cover were you thinking of? Oh, a picture of you, looking pretty. That's sweet, but maybe get a cover that's a bit more flattering and commercial. One of those Spice Girls things might do it. I insist upon it. Or maybe just stick with a picture of the sexiest looking planet.
Lizzie, I think we're about ready to head to the dispersal room and send all our additions now. You better check them over first though. We don't want to do this without our chief storyteller on hand, you know.
Look at you, I said, my voice shaking with sheer pride. When I first met you, you had no reason to live, and look at you now, in charge of the biggest fight back the galaxy has ever known, perfectly at home being in charge, and doing something no one else I know could do. And look at you, I said, returning the compliment, the most important figure on your planet right now, all prepared to give your life to save the universe. We did good, Enwin. Whatever happens next, here today, we did everything we could. We did, Lizzie. I don't think we were put here by accident at all. I think we were meant to find and save each other and everyone else. I just hope that it is enough. I decide not to tell him we were apparently only put together by mistake. I just managed to block that thought out as it first raised itself in my head. It sounds as if the protest is still going on outside anyway. This is the best of humanity. I hoped you would see. When people think they're doing the right thing, there is no stopping them until it's done. They'll keep it up all the way through any raid. I smiled at Enwin. You are the best of humanity. That's all I ever needed to see. It's been one hell of a collection of dates, hasn't it? I'll say. I do worry though. You're still in danger, and I feel responsible. You would have been safe if I hadn't met you. Safe maybe, but incredibly bored. It's been quite a journey, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I wonder what will happen to us as well. I guess that even in a timeless universe, only time will tell. I've just thought, what about the ending? Our tale's only going to go up to where we are now. We can't all make it up like the narration arts seem to be. I guess the books will just have to end abruptly. Don't worry, if we succeed, there's still time to go back and add on an ending in a future edition. One that goes back and adds everything that happens from this moment on. Good point.
Lizzie, Edwin, I think we are all ready. Every edition has been copied 1,000 times too, just to give us a better chance of getting the word out there. Apparently printers are universal too, as we all seem to know what they are. I hope we don't burst the universal machine.
How fascinating it was to see the different creations of his different creatures. When my Clandusprod version was artistic and ornate, the Bellabrats version was colourful, the Camelosians version was very long and detailed, full of polemic and vitriol. The Glabdahardits had used an edgy action version of our story. The Mechions was highly detailed and full of technical terms. The Habridats version was very arty, and written mostly in poetry but punctuated by jokes. The Grumps version looked like a magazine brochure. The Eurasian Arts version was told like a serious spiritual documentary. The Dewsbury Giants version was a scratch and sniff recipe volume that smelled amazing. And the human version, I noticed, seemed to be a little of all of these, like the mixture of races the humans seemed to be. Yet they all tell very much the same story, whatever way was most likely to get their species on their side. Human or Clandusprod interest, moral crusades, colourful epics where the heroes beat the villains, brash soap operas, light-hearted fun, soul-searching drama, and cooking. All this time I had longed to be a storyteller, and here I was with a story that was being told, not just in one way, but 10. Had I finally found my calling? At last. Though the alleyway is broken, and the light too dim to steer, something in me has awoken, I'm back to letting light in here. I am set now in what I am, The path has been made clear. I have the heart to be a part of the light that shines in here. And every word I write takes me closer to my goal. And even if they are all shite, they're better than not writing them at all. For I don't want to hear no more the bombs blast, destructions roar, or to see the bloody gore, for soon they will have no effect on us. None at all. Camalosian Happy Song. We were all there poised over the dispersal machine, our work all finished and lined up, the time period successfully dialed. How strange it seemed that there was a time when all our planets still seemed so separate from one another, that most of us on our planets, even now, went to sleep at night thinking they were the only inhabited star in the sky. I suddenly realised that I had been alone in my thoughts, that everyone was waiting for me, looking towards me as if to make a speech. My first instinct was that I was unworthy, and not to do it, but I clamped down on that thought hard before anyone properly received it. Surely it was better to at least pretend that I was confident and in charge, and that we had every chance of success. So I decided to quench my sense of unease, and stood before everyone, soilers and aboves alike. Thank you everybody for your part in doing this. None of you had to do what I asked of you, or risk your lives for me and my kind, and I am so grateful, more than you will ever know. You have all proven yourselves to be true friends, and even if all goes to plan and Ziggurat is free never knows how close they came to catastrophe, I will, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. If we succeed, then lives will be saved because of what happened here today. And if we fail, then at least we know that we did everything we possibly could do. We may be treated as pirates, but we are truly explorers in the best and noblest sense of the word, every one of us. Much outbreak of applause at this. Well, that's what we Clandusprods, human and Glabdahardicks did anyway. The rest all waved their arms, or squawked, or stuck their tongues out at me, depending on what their cultures demanded of them. Not quite sure what to do, I stuck my tongue back out at them.
Group hug,
said Hector, and so that's what we had. Somehow it was a great comfort to know that hugging too was a truly universal language, not just something from my planet and Enwin's. Hugging and the Beatles, what a great selection of universal gifts to have from the universe. Oh, and printers, that last one seemed less so somehow. All the books were dispersed one by one, delivered by us individually as the rest of us parted, randomly appearing on monitors as they disappeared. As far as I could tell, they were all delivered safely, by one stray volume that ended up in the sea, on Czechoslovakia. All we needed now was to draw attention to our books and where they had ended up, but I had planned for this. Remembering what fun it was to be a ghost, I dialed up a few random numbers on the teleportal machine, and whenever one of us recognised our home planet, that's who I sent through, with strict instructions to make as much mayhem as possible, so that people would go and see what was happening, and find our books waiting there. One by one the species went through the teleportal just as I had done, and it was interesting to see everyone's different techniques. The Morasianarts stared intently at the nearest person, willing them to turn round and pick up endurance. The Dewsbury Giants made lots of noise. The Mechions caused great ructions of the space-time barrier. The Camalosians sort of waved their arms round a bit. The Habridats really got into things, running up and down corridors, while the Magrumps knocked things over. I had great fun returning to my old cave and running round and round in circles, making everyone in my clan take notice of me, as I was suddenly the most important Clandusprod that ever lived, and desperately needed them to see me. To my great relief they did, sensing me in death as it never had in life, as I sent great currents of energy round the room, shot giant orbs from my fingertips, and caused all the furniture to fall over, leaving my Clandusprod copy of Endurance lying in the middle of all the mess. I was most relieved when my clan leader bent down to pick it up and started reading it, calling the rest of my clan over as he recognised my name on the Clandusprodic edition. A few of my clan even cried when he showed them. As for the humans, well, we had no humans we could send back through the portal, but the Mechion did something clever and pressed a few buttons, and before long I saw the Earth copy of Endurance appearing on a gadget the humans seemed to call Amazon, some of them in Kindle form. Just as the last copies were being pushed through the dispersal machine, however, there was, coincidence? Divine timing? A kerfuffle at the door.
So this is where you're hiding. I've traipsed down this corridor's endlessly looking for you. Traitor. I might have expected a little this personal spotted troublemaker and a pet monkey to get involved in this, but the rest of you should be ashamed of yourselves. Do you not see the danger if we allow the humans to spread out into the universe? The people they will kill. You,
he said, pointing to Oliver the Mechion.
You especially consigned our people to destruction.
Time can be rewritten,
Oliver the Mechion said.
and we have just done our best to rewrite it. Do you not remember reading about our planet's past when they said climate change and global warming had gone too far to be solved? We stopped it. Things were touch and go for a number of years while the leaders dithered, but we did it in the end. We even moved planets. Do you remember our society's obsession with nuclear fission and missiles? Didn't we come out of that a better species? Do you remember the poverty and illness so many used to live with every day till the people took over and gained control?
Maybe, but ours is a special and noble race.
Now perhaps, but for a time we too were savages scrambling in the dark. Don't look upon humanity as your enemy. Look upon them as your scruffy, socially inept and awkward younger brother.
Oi, said Enwin in the distance.
Don't judge them by how they are now, but what they might become. That's the gift of the universe. That's why so many of the souls are sent back to our planets to learn this lesson. Because everyone has a chance of redemption. It is never too late for any of us, even those of us who took our life into our own hands and ended up here too early.
You too? Gasped Lizzie.
Actually, that's true for all of us above. We were lying before. We made a pact not to mention it, to pretend it had never happened.
I didn't realise. You all seem so confident and sure of yourselves.
As did you 5 minutes ago when you were firmly in control and giving speeches. We were just too early to find out what we were meant to do with our lives, that's all. Things hadn't quite coalesced yet.
Very nice and charming,
said our rogue spy.
but all meaningless. Writing can be used to put across every point of view across, including my own. My own team has been working together on public opinion on Earth. About raining a factory, it doesn't have a week. It should be arriving, say, just about now.
Enwin, get out of there! But before Enwin had a chance, something strange happened. The dispersal room was suddenly enveloped in light, and 3 more balls of light miraculously appeared, floating their way through the door. They surrounded the rogue Mechion, pulling him off from the rest of us, but made no other moves towards him. One of them, whose kindly voice I recognised, then spoke.
It is true that you do not have much time left, but there is yet time left to leave, if that's what you choose. As for this baby, his time, I think, has run out. He will not stop slow anymore. We have waited long enough to see how this timeline will play out, and given free will long enough room. Now then, we are heading down an irreversible path, and that cannot be allowed.
You dare to stop me?
Said the rogue ball of light.
But I am no people. I'm the good one here. To save my people from those savages. On my mother was a king. They are our people, even in death.
You are one of us in wrong only, not in spirit. We have no kings here anymore. Your old power counts for nothing. And your actions have crossed over the line from defence to offence. All species will be given a chance, and if they go too far, they will be stopped too. Your world will be safe. From this point on, your powers are no more,
said the bigger light.
But you never stopped us.
You always had free will before, but not anymore. Not with so many lives at stake at such a fixed point in time. What should I do with him?
The voice said, turning to us. Everyone in turn turned to me. Well, nothing. Show him mercy. He was only doing what he thought was right to protect his own people, just as we are protecting ours. And if my time here has taught me anything, it is that it is never too late to change and grow, to become something different to what you were when you started.
Don't listen to her. What we say is on the planet, we humans go through. Oh well, we usually disperse us without knowledge. Isn't it forbidden?
Dear comrade,
said the kind of ball of light.
In all but emergencies, yes, but I think my friends here will concur with me that this was indeed an emergency. Do you not see that you have been looking for the wrong thing and finding them because that is all you saw? We know you were listening into the conversation between the Clandusprods and humans. We saw your wires sticking out from the machine. Mechion technology must have uploaded to this room from home. Is that not a crime too?
I need to listen to hear what you're repeating. The words exploiting each other,
spluttered the rogue Mechion.
I was listening to, without the same machine your prejudice did, and all I heard was love. True love. Whatever their differences, whatever their faults, this Clandusprods of this human clung together through everything, growing stronger with every misdeed, and it was only your interference that split them apart. They have spoken though, and shown you mercy, and I think it proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that our young Clandusprod friend here has truly grown up enough to make her own decisions, more so than you for all your power. Far from being a favour, I think she has proved herself to be quite the hero.
I blush at this, the deepest shade of roulette there is.
The rest of you too, you have all played your part, and played them well. I couldn't tell anything of this because you had to do it by yourselves, but this was a fixed point in time, and you were always changing through this, all of you.
Even me and Enwin, I asked, shocked.
Especially you. It was always the universe's plan that we would be together, a plan we hid from the other ball of light. He genuinely thought your parents of this test.
there is still a matter of mind. We can't stop that.
The rogue alien sneered.
It is sadly true that we cannot interfere with matters outside here. In order for things to be truly changed for the better, one of you must still play their part.
And my heart slept as I felt the ball of light loom directly at Enwin.
Humans, it seems, need a little bit of extra, convincing to play their part, which in turn will convince all the other planets.
What is it that I have to do? Enwin said.
Oh, I think you know that without me having to tell you.
The light answered. If I do, will I end up here with Lizzie?
I do not know. Where people end up is not up to me or any of us, but a higher power beyond ourselves. There is a strong possibility that we'll end up reincarnated again into the body of another species, which is what happens to all of us as we live and grow, experiences life from every point of view in this dimension. Even if this was, as I suspect, your final lifetime, then you might still end up in any number of other heavens spread across this dimension. Even if you make it to this one, this is a timeless place, and you will only make it uphill when the time is right, not when the likes of you and me want it to be. Let me warn you, human, the odds are against it. We have other members of every other intelligent creature, but not yet a human. Maybe you will be the first. Who knows?
But you still think I should do it?
You have free will. It is not up to me to say.
But if I had to?
That is not for me to tell.
How long do I have down here before the bombs hit me?
Long enough to say goodbye and start the broadcast. Good luck, human.
With that, all of the balls of light were gone, including the rogue Mechion, who dissolved right in front of us, still pleading for clemency. Silence fell. We were all left speechless.
I hope you know that Miss Mechion didn't represent all of us,
said Oliver sadly.
We like to think that we are a peace-loving species under normal circumstances.
Don't worry, I told him, as comfortingly as I could. He was quite mad. I doubt our Clandusprodic leader would represent my views either. You've been brilliant, all of you have.
Look,
said Mimosa finally.
On the monitor.
Everyone was talking about our book. On every planet we tuned into, enough time had passed for everyone to be aware of it. Debates were raging on television screens about what this strange book was and how much sense it had suddenly made, or not in a handful of places, most of them on Earth. Families looked up at the stars at night, trying to point our planets out. Shamefaced astronomers dotted around the galaxy admitted that they had overlooked the planet Earth and long past assumed it uninhabitable. Earthly astronomers shamefacedly did the same for practically everywhere else. Protests began to break out at the few surviving ammunition bases around the galaxy. Leaders with too much power were being challenged by brand new young political parties, named things like Queen Lizzie, Bella Brat Attack, Clandusprods for Change and the Peace and Justice Project. We were the talking point of the galaxy, as older people dressed up as humans and Clandusprods for money, young people dressed up as humans and Clandusprods for fun. Though some were still scared and others perplexed, many more were accepting. Those planets that had not discovered storytelling especially fell head over heels for the new art form that had just arrived randomly into their world. It was a glorious moment to bask in if I had had the time, but of course I didn't. The one planet that wasn't quite convinced was the Earth. Despite everything that had happened, the threat of a bomb still existed. Enwyn's town had been evacuated long ago, but he still lurked there in the shadows of the factory, preparing for the end. Sigh, humans are such stubborn creatures. Maybe that's why I love mine so, somehow, all the more so for the fact that he refused to leave and save his own skin. Gradually all the other 12 beings bid their goodbyes, whether in spirit or in mind form, and dispersed from the dispersal room, or my brain, their minds leaving one by one. I got a long hug from Hector, a warm embrace from Mimosa, a peck on the cheek from Oliver, and a doff of 3 caps from Bobby. The rest all shook hands mentally, and told me and Enwyn how sorry they were. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but according to what they're saying on Earth in the monitor room, hitherto known as the party of the first party, you only have about an hour, Enwyn time.
We'll be waiting in your room, so you can find us again when it's over.
I haven't left it in a very tidy state, you know. I wasn't expecting visitors.
Oh, I think we know not to judge one another for petty things like that by now,
said Hector, almost laughing at me.
Goodbye, Lizzie. Goodbye, Enwyn. I've been so proud to know you both.
Lizzie, you are always the noblest Clandusprod of all, and Enwyn, you the noblest human it has ever been my privilege to meet.
You were the best, both of you. I came a close second though, didn't I?
That you did, Bobby. You did us both proud. Thank you, said Enwyn, as we both got in one last hug. Eventually there were no more voices, nothing else to say, and no way to avoid what happens next. Lizzie and I were both on our own. We left home far from map and land to discover the true self of our race, with our solitary gathering of species, finding goodness even in this time and place. From the domineering winds of God and Spirit, never again will we drift so far, waiting for the last of the cold to rush out from our world's final Antarctica. We have found what we have wanted. In searching for our goal, our tracks have led us far and wide, but now we have reached the pole. The sea of mass delusion, no longer to see, as we learn to search for our own true worth. Our community oddly served by this enforced isolation in this small factory, later this earth. Enwyn and Lizzie in the factory. We didn't really get much time together in the end, did we? Considering, you know, this book is about us. No, we didn't. To think I spent all my life waiting for you and we got, 20 days and 50 pages at most actually together? You can still run, you know. Nobody would think any of the worse of you if you did. Enwyn raised his head and looked at me sadly. I don't think I have a choice, really. You heard the hinting going on from the balls of light. This is a fixed point in time. It all depends on me saying goodbye to you here and doing what I must do. But I can't say goodbye to you. You mean too much to me. I so feel the same. Maybe they got the timing of the bombardment wrong. Maybe it's not too late. I could... But my words were drowned out by a barrage of bombing that rained down on the factory enclosure as if it was a bouncy castle and they were seriously overweight children. The whole place shook and rattled and made me fall over, gasping as I lunged for the ground, only to find that it was really a piece of the sky, turned black now as the bombing ray blacked out the sun. Luckily, whoever was sending ammunition over had no real idea whereabouts in the enclosure I was, and had sent everything down the wrong end. Or maybe not, I say to Lizzie, who was herself scared and scarred by the sudden intensity of the attack. I clambered under a table, which, despite being made of wood and offering only the flimsiest of protection, seemed better than standing out in the open air. I felt both of Lizzie's hearts beating violently in the dark as she mentally clutched hold of me, refusing to let go. We stayed there while all sorts of things rained down on our heads. Stray bullets, random gunfire. In the distance a bomb seemed to explode. Whoever had been in charge of dispersing this crowd was doing far too good a job, and clearly knew that they had not caught the ringleader of their gang. Even though I felt close to death in an entirely different way to normal, It almost felt good that they were so determined to break our spirit and resolve, as if we were doing absolutely the right thing for them to fight us so hard. Still, there comes a moment when you have been hiding for your life underneath a table for several minutes, when even this seems a bit much. This was especially true for Lizzie, who came from a planet that hadn't had such weaponry in generations, or scenes of destruction on the news every day, and that such things had all been banished to the history books long ago. I felt her nerve waver and die as we mentally clutched each other. "No, no, no," she cried. "It can't end like this, the way it began. It's like the night with the galumphary on wheels all over again. You could have escaped. I'm too late. I killed you." "There's a difference, my love. That time you felt you hadn't any choice and that you had to end it for the good of everyone. But here now, I make this decision knowingly because it really is for the best, for everyone. It's not the same sacrifice. That one was out of fright and tears and misunderstandings. This one is out of love. Love. Love for you, also your planet, and every species I've encountered in this mad escapade, but mostly you. Even after it ends like this, two scared, puny beings hiding under a table. I wouldn't have swapped the times we had together for anything, even this, though I do wish it had been a bigger table." Just then the whole ground shook again, as another barrage blasted right near to us, the sky a fuzzy collection of small inanimate objects that rained down on our table from up above. "Good human workmanship." "Pardon?" "You know, the table. It's still whole. Humans really could teach Clandusprods a thing or two." "Oh, there is so much we could have taught each other. Maybe we still can. Lizzie, I don't know how much time we have left, and if they're getting closer, I ought to start filming, to make my speech." "Hold it," she said as she consulted with the others in the monitor room. "It's okay. Well, no, obviously it's not okay, but that was a warning shot designed to make you come out so they can get a marksman onto you. They are setting up some form of bigger weapon we can't quite see, but it looks as if it will take an hour to set up. Please, run out now. I'm begging you. I've lost so many. I'm not losing you too." "There's no other way, Lizzie. I wasn't going to last much longer anyhow, you know. I can see in your eyes that you do too. Maybe they can reverse your illness with Clandusprod or Mechion or some other technology. Maybe no one else ever has to get sick if you survive long enough. I don't care about my planet anymore. I just care about you. Please don't leave me." "No, my love, there are much bigger things at play here than you and I. Simply a Clandusprod and her pet human. What's my future if I do run and hide? Months on the run as a fugitive may be, before I finally die alone and unknown of what has been following me like a shadow my whole life. You said to me once that you wish your life accounted for more. Mine hasn't counted for anything at all till now, but it will if I can save your planet. Better I die here in a heroic gesture that makes people think that, than a lonely death in a bed that nobody notices. All you say makes perfect sense in my head, Enwin, but in my heart I can't let you do this. I already killed myself. I don't want to be responsible for killing you too, the only being I ever truly loved. And what a way to go. I know the end is near, however much you try to keep it from me. But surely it's better to die the way you were meant to, in bed, with me holding your hand. Before I do this, I don't want us to end abruptly like last time. I want to give you a proper farewell. Lizzie, you need to know how much I love you, how much you were loved. Always, from the moment I first met you, all through till now. If we had had longer together, I could have shown you how much I loved you properly, taken you on so many dates. We could have been more like a real couple. That's all right, Enwin. I know, the same here. At least we had each other for a little while. It was so much better than not knowing you at all. I loved you so much too, from the first page to the last, in every way it is possible for one being to love another. Is it just me, or has there been an impending feeling of doom across our entire relationship? Now that you say it. But, and this sounds awful, if you die, then maybe I can have you here, all to myself. We don't know that though, my love. There's no telling where I might end up. Your branch of heaven doesn't seem entirely open to humans. At least this way, all the future Enwins and Lizzies on your planet have a chance. Then I shall make them. Oh, Enwin, I don't know what to do. I could win everything and lose you, or I could win you and lose everything else. I don't think there is a choice anymore, Lizzie. You know as well as I do that my species will only pay attention to something if it is right in front of their eyes, or they would just continue to look the other way. It is not like it seems on other planets. They need to actually feel the repercussions of their actions to see it happening under their noses. Just knowing that it's happening out there somewhere isn't enough. I know you're right in my head. Please forgive me if my heart is taking a while to catch up with it. Listen, though, no matter where I go, no matter what I'm reincarnated into, I will find you. If I'm not, and there are really such things as ghosts, then I will always be with you, in spirit. I shall haunt you like nobody's looking, talk to you like you are listening, and ache for you whenever you are not there, whether you see me or not. There is no one else I would rather haunt me, Enwin. Well, when people tell me in the future that the world moved for them, I can tell them that someone moved the earth out of love for me. That makes me feel incredibly special. Thank you. You are welcome. You know there's no other Clandusprod I would do this for, right? I doubt there's any other Clandusprod that would ask. With that, Lizzie gave me one last passionate kiss that I swear felt so real I would have sworn she was standing next to me. I could sense her, taste her, even smell her in that one moment, as our concentration in all this mayhem reached its peak. In that one moment, Lizzie was more real to me than any of my friends or family, and the loneliness of my life till then was wiped out in an instant. So this was what it felt like to be loved, to be half of a couple. I knew then, that totally and finally, that I had made the right decision, that this was the person I would do anything for. Yes, even this. And it was all worth it. Sadly, slowly, painfully, I felt Lizzie pull away. I believe in you, Enwin. I'm not sure I do, but thank you. I believe in you too, and if you're saying it, then it must be true. Who says we shouldn't be together? Because that sounds to me like the basis of every great relationship in the world, people believing in each other when they no longer believe in themselves. Despite my best intentions, I found myself crying at this, hiding it so that Lizzie doesn't see, though I know from her mind that she has noticed it all right, and is just trying to stop me thinking she has. It strikes me that this too is the basis of every great relationship in the world. It's going to be all right, Enwin. Honestly, everything is going to be just fine. When all this is over, I will be back in your head, and we will be laughing and joking about how we saved the world, and nobody even knew it was us. Seriously. Her words were comforting on the surface, but of the type that you speak to a beloved pet just before you put it down. And her eyes as she looked away from me after saying that. She was trying so hard to screw her face up not to cry too, and it randomly flashed through my head to ask her later what Clandusprods cried if it wasn't water. But there was no later. We both knew this was it, that this could easily be the last time we ever saw each other. See you soon then. Hopefully no more than a day my time. I hope no more than a year in mine. Lizzie, yes. You know that I love you, right? More than anyone else I've ever loved. Only on the condition that you know I loved you too, more than anyone else I ever loved. Even I have the option of undoing this, of never meeting you. Please know that I never would. I chose to do this. You are so worth it. And if the rest of your people are worth a millionth of you, then you are all even more worth it. On the condition that you know that if our roles were reversed, I would be doing the same for you right now. You and all you humans. Even if you did point a missile at my people and, try to kill us. I'm sorry about that. As first states go, it wasn't the best. Well, we'll have plenty more of those, won't we? And we will be able to look back on these moments when we are old and grey and know that we made a difference. You'll get old and grey first though, of course, being a human. I'll be able to keep my looks for a bit longer. If something goes wrong, you will find someone else, won't you? Who won't die on you as quickly as a human, that you can enjoy eternal life with. Oh, Enwin, you silly thing, I am already dead. And even with 10 known planets, there is only one you. You are unique. You don't really have to do this, you know. I won't think anything less of you if you don't. One last chance to back out. Maybe not, but I would think less of me. There's truly no other way I can think of. My Henwin! And Lizzie flung herself into my arms one last time. Even here, even in the midst of so much darkness and mayhem and inevitable doom and destruction, I felt like the luckiest human in the world. The tears finally came then, as she wrapped her arms round me. Oh well, I guess I didn't have to ask Lizzie about Clandusprods and tears anymore. My neck was getting wet with what seemed suspiciously like champagne. What will I do without you? Oh, it's easy, I say. You will remember me. And in between you will live your life, or at any rate the rest of your death, to the fullest extent you can. Because the best way of honouring my memory is to be a happy and fulfilled and complete you as you can be. Whatever happens, I will remember you always, even in a timeless universe that lasts forever. I couldn't forget you if I tried. I love you to the moon and back. Your moon. Oh, I love you so much further than that. And to the Pleiadian and back. To the edges of the universe and back again. Many, many times over. At this point it felt like there was nothing else to say, so we just embraced each other and hugged. Without a word we started thinking about the past in perfect synchronization, and kept replaying the short but glorious time we had been together into each other's thoughts, celebrating the fact that something so wonderful had existed at all, if even for such a very short time. After we ran out of memories, we started inventing images of what our life would have been like if we'd been a normal couple. Our first time meeting each other's families, our engagement, our marriage, the Clandu human hybrid children and grandchildren that would never now be born. We imagined ourselves into perfect old age, living a life that was full and happy and contented, each of us growing alongside each other forever and ever, as we made a home for ourselves amongst the stars, human and Clandusprod explorers both, not the pirates that everyone so feared now. Together we imagined this peaceful life that wasn't derailed by sickness, or frailty, or old age, or assassins, or missiles, or fear of the future, or outside interference, one where we had perfect control. But unlike heaven, the earth was not part of a timeless universe, and eventually I had a sign to let go, when the sun suddenly burst through the clouds, and pollution that had been covering it, and the light rained down on me, crouched in this tiny bunker. Slowly I pulled myself apart from Lizzie, and mentally raised my hand to dry her eyes. What a beautiful life! If only we could have had it for longer. Maybe one day we will, somehow. I don't think you should see the last bit, Lizzie. I don't think I'd be strong enough to, if you were brave enough to let me. Then finally, this is goodbye, the love of my life. And Enwin hugged me once again, kissing me full on the lips before mentally turning off his mental ability to receive my thoughts, and I was left there, perched in my familiar chair, kissing empty space with my arms wrapped around nothing. I toyed with the idea of refixing the settings, turning the machine back on, and pleading with Enwin not to go, but I knew that it would do no good. So instead I stayed there for a few minutes, trying to imagine what he must be doing, and how long it would take. After what felt like a very long time, I turned the machine back on, desperate to hear that he was alive, even though I knew that he couldn't be. We can manage to live through disability or injury, I thought to myself, just as long as he could still think. But there was no signal, just an endless error bleep on the teleportal of the equivalent you get when a hospital life support machine is signalling the worst. My head had never felt so empty, and I sat there, giving way to my grief like never before. Forget coming in waves, this one was a tsunami, as I wept bitterly again, not only for all that was, but all that now would never ever be. The road is long, still I can't pretend, but now the roses have bloomed again. I know my way. Body may be broken, but my mind is on the mend, and so I'm calling on you, my friend, for I may be coming back again. The roads that I crossed when I thought I was lost have all slid into focus again. I'm not heading back, and I know that for a fact, though the road that I'm on is still strange. Still, I won't change. Change all. Sergeant Bellabrat's Hearts Club Band. After Lizzie had gone, I stared into space, my head suddenly empty, but immediately filled with so many thoughts of what I had to do. There was no longer any time to mourn. I glanced at my watch. There was no way out now. I had to broadcast, to show my own people how narrow-sighted they had become. They had to see what this was like, a small fraction of what it would be like if one of the giant-sized missiles was really launched at another planet. I slowly hauled myself out of my hiding place into the night sky, climbing on top of a pile of rubble that had once been part of one of the greatest factories in the world, but which was now a mere monument to mankind's greed and jealousy. As I finally made my way to the top, I stood there, the sirens howling around me and the smoke choking me, but against the backdrop of a beam of light so powerful, after all that time hiding in the dark, that it put even the lights of heaven to shame. Even in miniature form, the effects were sure to be devastating, but I had prepared myself for that. It wasn't as if I had long to last anyway, and at least this way my death might mean something more than my life, as I told myself every one of 1,000 times I had almost chickened out at this moment. I had been through every eventuality and outcome in my mind, and there truly was no other way. Wearily I picked up everything I would need to broadcast and made my way out to the roof, so that I would be seen by anyone watching through binoculars or telescope, as well as the broadcast. Silence rang out from far away as if signalling that this was my last chance, but I knew that it was all for show to make the powers that be look good, and that for the timing to be right the missile had to be already on its way. As I set the recording device to broadcasting mode, I made sure it was in the right position. I noticed for the first time in a long time how bright the sky was already. It was the sun fighting its way through dense layers of fog, smog and pollution, going back decades, giving me one last burst of strength to get through this ordeal. I looked back at the recording device, aware of how significant and puny I seemed on this colossus of a building, poised to make my speech. I was well aware that the best of mankind was underneath me, the sturdy steel plates that stretched on for what seemed like miles, that seemed impenetrable, and that at once offered protection to many, joined above me by the worst of mankind, as I imagined the dim outline of a huge pointed object begin its wide traverse towards me. But not yet, I pleaded. Not until this is over. Although Lizzie and a billion distant supporters stood with me, I knew, on that day and that hour, it seemed as if I was alone, standing for everything that was good about my species. Had I been born a Bellabrat, I would no doubt be feeling very full of myself for sacrifice. But I was just a tiny human trying to buy a planet I had never known had existed until a year ago, a few bits of extra precious time. Nervously I stood up to the recording equipment, held it in my hands, clutched the book of my time with Lizzie against my chest so everyone could see it, having reverted to my cover of Ziggurat 3, despite what Lizzie had told me about sales. She was pretty enough for a cover star, and started to speak. Friends, I begin, and even my enemies, anyone who is a member of the human race, with special greetings for anyone from outside it who may be listening in. I broadcast the following to you not out of macabre or morbid fascination, nor to turn myself into a saint or martyr, for I know I am not that. Like the rest of my species, I have spent my life being heavily prejudiced against those who are not like me, who are of a different colour, or came from a different class, or talked in a different accent, or lived so far away that they might as well not have existed. But times have changed. Humanity can no longer think like this anymore, in small pockets. It is our ignorance and our intolerance that has formed the crossbow of our destruction. It is our jealousy and fear that have formed the arrow. We were born to be better than this. If we are to last as a species, we have to be better than this. discovery of a new planet in our universe filled with intelligent life is an acid test for us, our chance to leave our destructive past behind and become the people we were born to be. Our first truly verified contact with a new species should have been a time for hope, of a chance to learn from other beings and to become new creatures that evolved to live in the light of shared wisdom and love instead of being stuck in the past of darkness and fear. It is our chance to learn and grow and leave behind the destructive elements of our race in the nursery where they belong. The coming of another race into our lives is our chance for puberty, to prove humanity as a rational, intelligent, and above all humane society, the equal of anyone out there in the galaxy with knowledge and advice to offer other races, in return for the wisdom and counsel that will in turn make us a better species. This missile that is heading towards this building right now is a step backwards for our kind, one last assault from the hands of greed and dread before we put away our weapons for good and walk into a kinder, brighter future. I and the millions of supporters out there across the universe appeal to you who are watching this to go back and read my past posts and see what the Clandusprods of a planet they call Ziggurat 3 are really like. I beg you to educate yourself as to what a human attack on another species or even parts of our own race who don't agree with us would look like and what that says about us as a species. If possible, share what you see and hear today and in the books that are even now being created of mine and Lizzie's writings, not only with the people you love, but also the people you hate, so that we might see that life doesn't always have to be the way we are told it will be. I urge you to believe that we can do better than this, and that today's sacrifice is the first step towards being part of a race I could be proud to be a part of, with a culture based on love and sharing, not greed and intolerance. We are all equals, galaxy-wide, and it is time we started being proud of who we are, rather than ashamed of what we might become. Everyone, please, if there is a message in any of this, it is to be kind to everyone. I forgive those who even now are aiming a missile at me, and I ask you to do the same. Do not retaliate. Do not burn down their weaponry centres. Don't demand that they see your point of view. Instead, simply show them that there is another way, and do it with love. That way my life, and perhaps those of millions more strangers come potential friends across the side of the galaxy, will not have been in vain. I see the missile heading towards me for definite this time, and turn the camera towards it so that everyone can see it. Please make this the last mistake of our old ways, and let us bring on the new age for the human race. So far I had held it all together, but in the last split-second instant, as the sunlight radiated back off his fake steel machine and into my eyes, I couldn't hold it together anymore and howled, "Lizzie!" before whispering, "I only wanted to save you. I only wanted you to save me." The next split second the blast hits, and everything is on fire, including me. Somehow I was still not ready for when it came, and I really wasn't ready for how much of an eternity those few seconds would last. I begin to wonder if I made the right decision, or too late to make another now. Gasping in pain, I fall to the floor, my clothes ripped to shreds, while my skin burns, as I plead with fate that at least some of the instant attack was broadcast before the camera was destroyed in the blast. Despite my automation, part of my brain was still trying to fight through my thoughts. What would the reaction be? Would the humans wonder about the poor soul they had just crashed into? Or would I just be a distraction for them to tut over as they slurp their coffees and sip their teas? I registered how much the buildings screamed as they were sent flying into the air instead of pushed firmly down on the ground, as if it was desperately trying to cling to something normal in all this madness. Mostly, though, I see the light burning up everything, a very different light to the one I had briefly seen in heaven, with its many shades and colourings. This one was artificial, blunt, cruel. It burnt out my eyes as I lost consciousness in a fraction of a second, my body fuel to the destruction of my kind. As I died, I mentally bid goodbye to everyone and everything that had ever meant anyone to me. Slowly my thoughts turned staccato, unable to form full sentences. So much noise, lights in the darkness, mayhem, energy, confusion, with a last screech of protest at someone having the audacity of breaking the monotony of the mundane world. I was gone, but all was not lost, or at least that's how it felt. I am back in the teleportal run with my new and suddenly dearest friends. We are all watching in silence as they grab me by the arm. Given the different synchronicities between our two time zones, I am too late to see Enwyn's brave stance, though the others all tell me it was as noble and wonderful a death as can be. I'm not sure I wanted to see it anyway. But what I do want to see is this, the slow mutterings from the world asking, did you just see that? As a billion people all start researching the book of Enwyn's time with me all at once and reprinting copies. It is, you could say, one hell of a book launch. It is not just Enwyn's world either, but everybody's. Using Mechion technology, how odd that the same race that tried to destroy us should give us the means of our salvation, my clever friends have found a way of broadcasting Enwyn's sacrifice into their own planets. Around the universe, everybody suddenly knew our story, not just on Earth. Of course not everybody took to it. Social media messages dismissing it all as fiction and fake news, and that a migrant falling in love with a Bella Brat would have made for a far more enjoyable tale were plentiful. The far right, all planets have a far right sadly, pointed out that it was only sensible to take precautions and not to trust an entire species just because of the actions of one individual. Questions were asked in parliaments all over the universe about whether we were naive or stupid, or just so overwhelmed by love we were blind to each other's true nature. I had, after all, prepared myself. No one gesture was going to bring peace to an entire universe, however heroic. However, something also changed that day, and changed for the better, as all of us spent an enjoyable amount of time that must have run to years, or maybe even weeks, in everyone else's time, alerting our neighbours to the screen we were watching with a yell, as some other miraculous event happened on some planet or another in the wake of Enwyn's sacrifice. There would be some work inspired by us that would cause another tsunami of advocacy for peace, or someone would advocate for a peace party, or even just have a party, and our message would live on once more. Our story became the first intergalactic bestseller, even if technically it was written by 14 different authors. All 10 of our species learnt that while we were not alone, life was still vital and precious and rare. Those who had always been brought up on insular planets like my own with a set way of thinking began to learn about how other planets did things, and that their way, even if it still felt like the right way, was no longer the only way. Tentative trade agreements spring up between planets as species learnt to communicate with each other, pacts and bonds that were far more solid than the fear and fright of the past. On Ziggurat 3 I watched in awe as my own clan dug up my ashes and reburied them, this time in a fancy ornate box in the centre of our cave, with my name proudly on display, so that my own kin would come to know me after all, and be told stories about my life forever after. There was my gravestone, with my name in Clandusprods, there on the wall alongside all the others of my clan who had passed before me of great age. My stone clearly stuck out, being several centuries younger than the rest, but it felt like it fitted amongst them in a way I never had in life. A bunch of moss, our equivalent of a funeral wreath, was perched alongside it too, and in a fairly healthy state, suggesting someone had cared for it. How astonishing it was to see my body's final resting place from up here. How lovely, though, that I had meant enough to my clan to have ended up on the wall, a part of their shared history, not thrown out with the rubbish as I had so feared. It may have taken the death of myself and the person I loved, but it felt so good to be accepted at last. I somehow persuaded the balls of light to let me use the dispersal machine, plucked a feather from a willing habridat, and sent it to flutter down to my clan, a symbol of peace on earth that I hoped would be understood by them on Ziggurat 3. One of the youngest Clandusprods, who had been a mere strapling when I had left, found it and took it to his elders, who were amazed, and placed it on my coffin. They looked up, as astonished as if I had materialised there myself, for they did not have feathers at all back home. Someone mentioned my name, and one of the young ones waved while they all smiled and hugged each other while looking up. Not just my clan, but, as my camera pulled out, from every clan, they'd all come together for my belated funeral. It wasn't just me who was accepted at last, too. I grinned as I watched what happened on Earth, as a John and Yoko-style bed-in peace movement spread across the world, as ordinary people began to complain that their leaders were not serving their best interests anymore. The cruel coalition in charge of austerity on Earth were resoundingly crushed in the next elections by the new peace movement, who cancelled all war-related projects and spent the money left over to curb the cruel cuts of the past few years and upgrade technology using renewable fuels and Clandusprod technology to better establish trade links with the rest of the universe. The Enwin Trade Charter and Peace Pact was duly recognised as a first intergalactic peace deal, and which planet was it with? My own. Somehow all that hostility and fear had turned into a tremendous partnership as Clandusprods swapped for excess fuels in return for technology and human tips on how to go out in the sun and swap between caves without harming themselves. Everyone was happy. Well, everyone except a few power-hungry millionaires who made their money from fossil fuels and overzealous officials who hated the idea of Clandusprods mingling outside the caves. But they were of no importance in the grand scheme of things. On most planets, including both Earth and Ziggurus-3, monuments went up to either Enwin or me, or both. On Helisphere, the home of the Bellabrats, where of course they couldn't bring themselves to celebrate another species, and had a statue of Bobby erected instead. My favourite was, of course, on my home planet, where they raised a statue of me and Enwin in embrace, surrounded by a glowing light, and his one son meeting the three suns of our world. They hadn't quite caught him right. There was still a distinctly purplish hue to his skin after all, but it was close enough to set my pulses racing. This was a near-perfect day in heaven, literally. If only the person that I loved had been there to see it, it would have been perfect. But I knew life wasn't perfect, even up here. At least Enwin's life hadn't been in vain, and that was a lot of comfort. Hector came over to hug me.
I'm sorry, Lizzie. I know how much he meant to you. We all do. But by sacrificing his life and your happiness, he brought peace to quadrillions of people everywhere.
Yes,
joined in Mimosa.
You will never be forgotten, either of you, anywhere in the galaxy, as long as all of us 10 species last. And who else can say that?
Plus you are our heroine. You don't have to worry about making your mark or being remembered now, Lizzie. You may well be the most important person here.
Thank you, I stuttered to my dear friends. You are all so very kind, and you did far more to make the story come true than you all realise. But I would give it all up in a heartbeat for another minute with Enwin. And with that we have another mass hug, interrupted only by the appearance of a ball of light at the door.
Dry your eyes, you and I both know that he is not really gone. Up here we are the original recyclers, from long before it was fashioned.
Look, if you're going to give me a big speech about how he might end up in a different afterlife in another 700 reincarnations, I'm afraid I'm not sure I can take it right now, I sniffle.
You might not have as long to wait as you think you do. Come, say goodbye to your friend.
And I hug them all in turn, without any of us thinking it strange that I'm saying goodbye, before following the ball of light to a room that seems familiar. Isn't this where my story began all that time and all those pages ago? And isn't that someone in what looks like a hospital bed? The light is so strong it is hard to make out, but it is, surely. It has to be. This isn't another trick, is it? Well, is it? Back to light, back to source, all will be reclaimed. To lose their ego, lose their thoughts, their memories and names. But who they were and what they learned will always stay behind. No matter what bridges are burned, there's a shadow in your mind. It remembers who you were, not what you had to be. Though everything's still a blur, we're left with a folk memory. For it doesn't matter who you are, or what you're meant to be. The stories in the journey are not what's out at sea. Ziggurus-3, traditional folk song. Coming out of all that destruction was an odd stillness. A light that had, without me ever quite realising it, been there at the back of my mind for my whole life, suddenly moved forward until it surrounded me, and lifted me up out of this scene, filling the whole of my vision so that there is no longer anything except the light. Suddenly I realise that nothing aches anymore. This is such an odd sensation, somehow even greater than the counter-realisation that I no longer have a body, so long has it been since I had last felt like this. In my release I am young again, pain-free, the person I was meant to be. I have come out the other side, confused, concussed, confounded, and for all I know condemned, but I was otherwise okay. At first it feels as if I am in a hospital bed, but that feeling passes in seconds, as I know full well what I am. I am a ball of light. I am no longer a human. I am consciousness, pure and simple, the memory of my old life slowly fading. I am no longer a mortal. I am home, and there is someone there to greet me. Finally I get to be with Lizzie in person, well, as a ball of light, and she stands there looking at me, and even though she is only a ball of light now that I am one too, I sense the expression of pride on her face that you know in your heart you will only ever get maybe 2 or 3 times a whole lifetime. My eyes are still adjusting to the new light levels, so I am forced to squint, with what I am not sure, seeing as my eyes are now a distant memory. But I somehow sense her there smiling at me, radiating this beautiful golden light and looking more beautiful than I have ever seen her. Oh, Enwyn, you did make it here after all, the first human in this particular branch of heaven. That's going to really annoy someone we both know. No, don't speak. Save your energy. I know how tiring the transformation is. Oddly, after so many years with my illness, I feel free of any tiredness, so I continue speaking. Did it work? Is your planet saved? Yes, she beams at me with love in its purest form. Your sacrifice was the biggest talking point your planet had seen in years. Millions of humans started bed-ins and missile sites so they couldn't take off. Many world leaders were thrown out at the next election in miserable disgrace in favour of those that wanted to trade with us Clandusprods. The last I heard, they were using a device called a teletransporter to transfer lots of human gadgets through space to Ziggurat 3 in return for some of the fuel from our 3 suns. We have plenty to spare after all. I can't think where both species got copies of the designs of the machines from, and officially I'm not meant to tell anyone, but let's just say it's amazing what an instruction booklet, a screwdriver, Mechion technology, and 2 copies of a book being sent from above can do. You're really here. I know, and you're really there. To think we are actually together at last, in person if not in body. It's amazing, wonderful, stupendous, perfect, heavenly. And with that we hugged our first proper hug and kissed our first proper kiss that was somehow sweeter after all that waiting. And I knew that even in a timeless universe with other lifetimes buzzing around, the back of my brain straining to be recalled, I would remember this moment always, that this would be the very last part of me that ever died. Somehow the moment was no less special for being interrupted by one of the balls of light, and if I thought Lizzie had been proud of me, that was nothing compared to what radiated to the 2 of us from this being.
Well, my 2 illegal aliens together at last.
Did we win, I asked? Is Ziggurat 3 safe?
Yes, at least for a generation or so, till some new issue sparks up again.
Is that all? You mean it was all for nothing? I asked dejectedly. The humans still attack the Clandusprods.
With free will, it is hard to say. There is a map that isn't written in stone, but isn't exactly crazy paper either. You might find yourselves down side streets from time to time, or maybe even a cul-de-sac. It only takes a few more turns to get to where you were always supposed to go. Maybe they will attack you. Or maybe we both join forces to attack one of your other brothers and sisters. Maybe other enemies and lizards across the galaxy will be able to build on what you started. Or maybe peace will reign forever. What I will say though is that a path that has been walked once is much easier to walk again.
I hope we did okay, says Lizzie. I mean, we weren't very important, or clever, or talented, but we really did the best we could.
You were perfect, as I knew you would be. The human and Clandusprods who couldn't help asking questions. Who else would it have taken to do all this? Most humans and most Clandusprods go out of that stage very quickly, around the time they're going to school,
he said, looking at me.
Or learning to walk,
he said, looking at her.
Your sex race on both your planets came from a civilization that hadn't been around long enough to live and understand how the world worked just yet. They were meant to be works in progress, not true set rules and regulations, but each passing generation just accepted them as such. Inequalities, difficulties and all. I wonder why the 2 of you were born this way, to think so differently. It doesn't just make my job that bit easier.
Sheer brilliance, says Enwyn. Good breeding, asks Lizzie. There is laughter.
I suspect neither, and that you were both just badly behaved, but in all the right ways. I'm just grateful to both your faces that you were there. We might all be here.
Would that truly have been so bad? I mean, we know from being here that nobody really dies, which admittedly took rather a lot of jeopardy out of the second half of our book.
Yes, it would. Every individual from every species needs to learn to get to the next level. It would not have been allowed in our last one, and this is only one and one. We think there are seven, but who knows how many there are really. To have lost one entire species could have worked higher up while there are so few of you that it would be tragic. I can't imagine it. None of you on any planet ever seem to understand that life is so fragile and so precious. There really aren't all that many species alive out there, considering the size of the galaxy. You all matter, and I'm not even talking about you as a species now, but individuals. Everybody matters. Perhaps it's only when you get the perspective of being here that you realise that.
Were you an alien species too before you made it here?
Yes, I was making it on my time. We were the first to make it here. We are still nominally in charge, even though the ending for our race is nearer than both of yours. Perhaps that is to be expected. If we were the first to raise ourselves up here, then maybe we should be the first to die out.
The ball of light who went a bit mad. He was right after all. The human race does attack you.
He was right to worry about it, but wrong to try and stop it. That is not part of our job as guardians. We oversee and hint. We don't generally intervene. After all, it only takes one nudge of happiness for an outbreak of peace and an entire species can turn over the whole new world. It happened with our own kind, the first that said stuff there. The elders who were here then said that we were half savages, we knew more technology than we did spirituality. We were not unlike the humans around that.
So that's why he feared us so much, because we reminded him of his own kind.
Yes, could so easily have gone the other way. I guess it still could, though it would take momentum to the worst to send it back again. We were saved by two individuals who grew up in two tribes from the separate ends of my life. We worked together. I knew it could happen again, so I was looking out for two of you who looked suitable for my plan, without me actually doing anything. I chose you both from childhood, exactly because you couldn't fit in with the world around you. You were miserable. You were less caught up in the roles and traditions of your species. You were both meant to help from your own planets, but with my original plan. Lizzie, you really did end up here too soon.
You've been following us all that time.
Yes, I was always watching through all of it, for I am the guardian angel for both of you. I am the ghost that watches over and laughs at the mistakes that was made. Most of us was the ghost making you too. I was male once, but now I am the shadow of the figure that walks by your side, sight unseen, there to catch you as you fall. And if I have done my job well, set you back on the right path without you knowing. I could see that the path of both of you was difficult, though it also meant that I chose wisely. For who with a happy life born into prosperity, with everything they ever needed, ever wanted to tear down a corrupt regime or end suffering?
That oddly helps. Same here, but a sign or two that we were the chosen ones would have worked well too.
But the difficulties were those. At least we are in this relationship. There are more we know, but they separated even more than your caves and vigorous fruit, with dazzling light between them, much brighter than the one we have here.
So I'm indeed lucky I ended up here then, instead of another heaven.
Well, not lucky exactly, but there was always a risk this plan might not have worked, and you might have been less convincing that you know you were dying on your world, with a guarantee of having a perfect life up here. You two were always meant to end up together, and if Lizzie was his, it would make sense to eventually move you two.
So it wasn't a mistake, being paired with Enwyn, I mean.
My dear, could you ever truly doubt it? You were always meant to be together, forever, in the sense that mortals understand. It's just that for you forever came too soon.
Those weekly job centre visits seemed to come round quite often too. I'm sure they weren't all necessary. The celestial being ignored this remark.
As for ending up in this house particularly, I haven't had a secret that I have so far kept from all the others. Of this was the reason. All the other afterlives seem to feature solely members of the same species, even amongst those who have made interstellar contact. Up to this point in civilization, those species tend to like hanging around whoever they were in their last incarnation. even after learning of all the other species out there. But this one, this head, is for the misfits who don't belong together necessarily, but with other members of every species who could come. That's why there are so few of anybody here.
So every species ends up in some kind of heaven?
Only by the end. First, every intelligent being gets to live again in something on some planet somewhere. You two have already read out several lifetimes as Clandusprods from humans, not to mention Balabrats, Gladgahardans, Mechanians, Camelosians, Eurasians, Dewsbury giants, Agrosians and Grog. And yes, Lizzie, you have lived out lifetimes as a member of every single family in your clan. That is perhaps why you rebelled against the ones you inhibited, because you had been there before, and you subconsciously didn't really think. And you have already lived out a life unknown and 11 different physiological signs before your son. It is also to get a better flavour of what living is all about, so that you can have vague memories of what it's like to be someone else, and think thoughts quite different to your own. The time is coming soon when beings from around the universe will have lived their lives as every possible species, in every possible permutation of the universe. It is time for them to make good. You two have arrived here early, and a little perhaps on the wrong side. But the universe is changing. The more people realise it's back on your planets, the more hopeful I feel the future intergalactic contact between the planets. The more people like the two of you will stick their necks out for what feels right and fair and good rather than what makes you most money or prevents you from being the most scared. Or down you might feel miserable with fading planets and wars between other planets and no mutant themselves. That's how the third dimension. In the fifth dimension, things are changing for the better, and not the full time. You have both learned your lessons well, and passed your qualifications to the real hell you want, and know that we still call you that, even after 85 lifetimes.
You mean this isn't it? Asked Henry. There's more.
More than you would ever know or understand. There are many more levels that we understand in this dimension, and maybe more to follow.
Oh dear, said Edwin. That means one day we're going to have to write a sequel.
Maybe, but it would have to be from the dimension we're in now, or no one would understand it.
So, I finally get to ask, tell me truly, what was it all for?
Nobody truly knows, as none of the people who have gone before it have reached back to tell us. Perhaps we will not understand it as they have. There are rumours, though. Some say that all stories made up for the enjoyment of God. Some of us have sequels, trilogies, epilogue. Some are monologues, and others are melodramas. Some are comedies, some are tragedy. Most of us are all. Some of us are just names, while others are symphonies. But all of us were made to play the same tune, and are alive to work out what that tune is, and how we should play it. In your time, some of the wires got crossed, and some of the keys crashed, and there wasn't a lost chord anymore, but a huge cacophonic noise that no one was listening to anymore. Your two mates meant to put everything back in harmony. Or not. Others say that a computer glitch gone mad, a hardwire or created an extra dimension one day. Others say the universe is working backwards and steadily devolving towards its back. Others still think that this is all random, and all those extra levels were created by accident rather than design. Others that none of this exists at all. We are all in the mind of a being who is yet to wake up.
Somebody who sleeps more than you, Enwin, said Lizzie, darting automatically back from being poked in the ribs, even though she had no ribs to poke, and I had no fingers to poke with. Why so much suffering, though? Down there, I mean.
My dear,
said the voice,
that has nothing to do with life. It has everything to do with you.
You could stop it, though, I argue. Give people a taste of what is to come. The worst thing about certainly my last lifetime was not knowing if it was all for nothing, or not.
Then how would you learn to pass the test? Think of heaven, the true heaven, as a disc. You can't come without a ticket, without having learned what it is to have suffered at the hands of another. Well then where would it be? People who would get it, who didn't deserve to be there. It would be chaos, rows, arguments, jealousy, violence, bad singing, it would be dreadful. The bouncers don't go off into the streets telling people to join in. They stay at the door keeping people out.
Even so, I add, I wish the pass rate hadn't had to be quite so high.
Me too,
said the voice.
But you will soon see when you get there and have the memories of your old life restored the way you had to go through all of it and see the universe from every angle.
What is it like? Asked Lizzie.
There is no time like the present,
said the voice. We won't disappear or anything, asked Edwin. No more than we have already, I mean. I couldn't bear to lose Lizzie again.
You have a strange idea, even after all this time,
said the voice with a smile.
Do you not see what heaven really is, even now?
I think I do, said Lizzie. It's just like the universe we have left, except we know about each other now. We have our memories restored of what it was like to be everyone else, and see things from our point of view. There are no bodies left to grow old or decay or fight over resources. We can just simply be.
Correct as always,
said the voice.
You really are a very smart Clandusprod.
That's obviously the part of you that's been heightened by hanging out with a human, said Edwin, before getting what would normally be called bodily attack, if he'd had a body.
Now they say that before departing to the next universe, you were traditionally meant to have learned something. So, purely for the paperwork and the timesheets that need to be filed, tell me what you've learned during your time on the home planet.
Said Edwin, who was never comfortable with being put on the spot. Don't run with scissors?
Not exactly what I was thinking of.
Don't piss off humans with nuclear missiles?
No doubt true, but not perhaps what I was looking for. Look, that rebellious part is wearing a bit thin now, to be honest.
It's not the way you look that matters, but what's inside that counts?
Worthy, and no doubt true, but a bit dull.
Stay true to yourself.
Not really, you'd all be dead on both planets.
A quantitative pantropic intonating entity is equal to the force of senseless corporeal organisms.
Yes, well, that goes without saying.
Life is all about growing, but not necessarily growing the way people around us want to.
Well, that'll do, I suppose. Now then, you are the first of your species to make it to the next level. For only the most enlightened make it. You will be left with only a vague memory of the cultures you are leaving behind as you become your true self. All the parts of your knowledge from all those different lifetimes on every planet coalesce as one. You have no need for any of that past baggage. You are something whole, complete, a personality without the identity. But you will remember each other, and you will be together always, or at least include the sense of another rather further.
We did it. We got to be together at last. My love, there is no one else I would rather spend eternity with. Just think if we'd been twinned with Bella brats. We giggled nervously.
All right, enough of that. I'll start to be as prejudiced as everybody else around here. Now that my paperwork is done and my timesheet's completed, my job guideline is complete, I too get to journey up to that light to see what it was like. I've always wanted. Go ahead, I will follow you up.
And so it came to be that Lizzie and Enwin walked up the ladder, hand in hand, no longer a Clandusprod and a human, but purely as a couple, waiting to start eternity together, slowly fading into the extreme brightness of the light as they disappeared from existence as we understand it, with new adventures yet to find.
Good evening. I am the Reginald from the planet Mars, and I invite you to hear the next exciting installment of Kindred Spirits titled Insurgent, which is all about a human who comes to our planet. Sadly for her, it is right at the time of the reign of tyrant Almathea, who doesn't take kindly to off-worlders. It's a very philosophical, spiritual, illuminating work, while considering it was written by an Earthling anyway, and features several songs from the Intergalactic Song Contest and performances by the Intergalactic Peace Orchestra, because music really can save the universe. Sorry, if you don't mind, I have to go now and listen to it all over again whilst meditating and cleaning up my chakras. Oh.